Hey y'all, I'm Nat McKellar Crosby, principal at the Herbal Apothecary, and thank you for joining me on the Herbal Apothecary podcast. So, a little bit about the Herbal Apothecary. We exist to provide safe and effective healthcare for those looking for an alternative. We specialize in lifestyle diseases like heart health and diabetes, as well as gender affirming care and sexual health. And we started the Herbal Apothecary podcast because we exist as an alternative. And so we wanted to create a space where we could speak about alternatives to the current systems that we have in place, right? So, again, thanks for joining me today. This is just our second podcast and our first one where you get to see me. My last one was just on Spotify with my voice. And so I'm very thankful for you joining me and listening in because I definitely want to share in what we can do to start to create the futures that we seek. All right. So typically, what we do is we'll go over some current events, uh, and today we're going to go over some economic structures, right? Some alternatives to our economic system in place, and then as always, we will discuss a herbal remedy for a lifestyle disease. I think today I'm going to talk about diabetes and corn silk as an effective remedy for that. So let's just jump into it, right? Let's jump into it. So it's been crazy. It's been a crazy few weeks. We've had a phony assassination attempt that happened as quickly as it diminished. We had our president not seek the nomination for to continue on to be the president. We've got the vice president now running in his place, and so it's certainly been eventful, right? The systems at play they're having a ball right right now, and so it's really concerning that the political theater is at the state that it is, right? Like we are all hinging on this foolishness that we're all having to partake in, and so it's unfortunate, right? But there are alternatives. But before we get into the alternatives, I do want to kind of go into a tangent just a bit because I was just talking to a loved one of mine, and they would, I believe, identify as a foundational Black American, right? At the very least, a descendant of slavery, right? And this person is absolutely against voting for Kamala Harris as our next president and won't say it, won't like admit it to me, but everything else they say says that they're going to vote for Trump. And their basis for doing so is because they say Kamala isn't for Black people, right? And don't get me wrong, I am I'm essentially nonpartisan, right? Because I don't believe that there are good guys on either side of the table. So I'm not gonna tell you who to vote for or what you should think. Say hey to Cuba. This is my 9 month old my 9 month old Havanese, my Cuba bear. So I don't like to kiss him, but I'll nose him a little bit. You know what I mean? But he's my sweetheart. So hey Coobs. But yeah, these and I take particular issue with this because I don't, again, vote for who you want to vote for. But let's try to stick to the facts, which is something I know is very difficult for people who follow Trumpism, right? It's very difficult to stick to facts. And so if your logic, let's follow the line of logic here. If your logic is I'm not going to vote for Kamala because Kamala isn't for Black people, then I need you to explain to me how that equates to you voting for Trump because somehow Trump is. The only reason why we even know Trump's name is because back in the 70s, the Department of Justice sued him for racial discrimination. That was the very first time Trump's name ended up in the New York Times. It was the very first time for racial discrimination. We're talking about a man who put out a full page ad in the New York Times to beg for the murder of black people for crimes that they did not commit. So I don't understand how you can say that Kamala isn't for black people. Kamala doesn't acknowledge her black side. All of that really doesn't actually sit in the facts when Kamala is an AKA, which is like a bedrock of being a black Greek, right? Like, come on, let's talk about the Divine Nine here. You're gonna tell me that Kamala Harris, as an AKA, does not identify with her black side? That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's not factual. It's not actually based in facts, and I can't take you seriously if you can say with your whole chest that you're not voting for Kamala specifically for the reason of her not being for black people, but you're gonna then give your vote to Trump. All I'm saying, ain't no good guys. Ain't no good guys. And that's why we're here talking about alternatives to the systems at place, right? But I just have I got a real problem with people ganging up on with black people specifically, ganging up on other black people, then taking the side of someone who is not black and has a history, a lengthy history of being adamant about not liking black people. I think it's foolishness. I think it's foolishness. And the people who are feeding you this garbage are probably getting checks. But I don't want to go down that route. You know, I'm absolutely trying to be a peacekeeper out here. I want to bring us all together. I want to make sure that we can achieve the goals that we seek, that we say we want, and that we're willing to work for. That's all I'm here for. So if y'all want to listen to people who want to tell you to hate a black woman, but go vote for the other guy who hates black people, you know, have at it. Do what you need to do. We are here to talk about alternatives to the current systems at place. And so today, I want to talk about economic structures. And specifically, I want to get into cooperation and what it means to be in a cooperative society and what that entails for cooperative economics. Now, we are all familiar, at least I assume, that we are all familiar with cooperative economics, right? Group economics. I mean, if I grew up celebrating Kwanzaa and still do now, and Ujamaa, the principle of Ujamaa has reigned true for the entirety of my life, right? And so cooperative economics is not anything new, but it is something that within our community we do not embrace because we are so used to individuality and each one of us having to pull up our own selves by our own bootstraps, right? That's the story we were all told after we built this joint, right? After we built this joint, we were told, oh, you got to pull yourself up, right? And so as we delve into this conversation about cooperative economics, I want to start with the story of post-Reconstruction and formerly enslaved people using cooperative economics to build the first black cities and towns across this nation. And we can, and again, as a sidebar, we can map these cities and towns of black thriving life across the nation because it's where all of our highways are now. And so if you look at the highway system and you see a place that has 5 or 6 intersecting highways and you know, it's a hub, those hubs were specifically put on black areas, black thriving areas to stomp out economic progress, right? And so, and that's an unfortunate tidbit, right? That's an unfortunate side segment, a side talk that we can certainly have at some point. And hey, maybe we might even touch on it a bit today. But the facts remain true that our ancestors used cooperative economics, cooperation, in order to lift themselves up together post-enslavement and create thriving Black cities, black businesses, black towns, black life in these here United States that used to enslave them. And so I think the story of post-Reconstruction black cities and black life is so important for black people to know about. And it's actually it's almost interesting to me how that segment of time is like the one segment of our history that we really don't know much about, that we're not really delved into, right? Because that post Reconstruction segment of America, that did not last long. I mean, by the time the 20s came around, and definitely by the 30s, they were pretty much depleted at that point because of Jim Crow and the KKK and state-sanctioned murder and pillage of black areas, right? And in some regards, you could say that has lasted up until the current day. I mean, I'm pushing 40. When I was born, the year I was born, the movement was bombed. Was that in Baltimore or Philly? I want to say it was Baltimore, but I'm riffing, so I might have that wrong. It was Baltimore or Philly that they came in and bombed. And MOVE was a cooperative movement, right? Again, wiping out black progress in the United States is like apple pie, you know. And so I'm trying to get back on track here. My bad, y'all. But the post-Reconstruction period, where black people collectively came together and built up these cities and towns and allowed them to thrive. This was only possible during that time because of them electing to take cooperative economics. If post-enslavement people had this individualistic ideology at that time, we would have never had this. We would have never had this because it takes a collective to bring about collective change, right? And so we have all existed, at least in my lifetime, we've all existed with individuality and being very proud and very happy of the singular people who are able to make change for them and their families. And that's awesome. I'm not detracting from any of that, right? That's great. But as a collective, we are still nowhere near other races, other nationalities, in regards to our sound footing at the very least, right? Like we really just don't got much to stand on outside of the singular people that we can look to that said, hey, they made it, right? And to me, as a people, as a people with purpose, I don't think there's anything better that we could do with the air that we got in our lungs right now collectively than to make a true economic base for our progeny and those who come after us, right? If we continue to look at our economic situation as an individual endeavor, our children and our children's children will continue to suffer. And so, again, I'm here with the Herbal Apothecary podcast to try to open up this discussion about alternative systems that we can take advantage of in order to progress ourselves, to progress our futures, and to progress our progeny, right? Why would we want to continue down a path where we know that our parents and our parents' parents had restrictive economic access? We, in this time, have more access, less knowledge, but more access around economics, and then think that our future would be different without taking up something else, right? And so cooperative economics is just that. And so the crux of cooperation is really self-responsibility, people coming together, people who take responsibility for themselves, coming together as a collective and saying, we are going to do this for us, right? We are going to do X so that we can get Y for us, right? It is a group effort, right? A group effort filled with individuals who are responsible for themselves and the goals that they have and what they want to see for their future, right? You following me? You keeping up with me? I hope so. And so when people who have taken on the self-responsibility to make change come together, great things can happen. And so essentially when you have cooperation, you are looking at trying to find some type of means of production that you all can own collectively. And that can show up in many different ways, right? And we can take a look in our current ecosystem and see examples of cooperation, right? And so you have agricultural cooperation, right? A lot of farming can be cooperative. That's why the USDA has so many cooperative programs available, because cooperation and farming kind of go hand in hand, right? And so you have a collective of farmers, or you can have a collective of consumers, right? So you get cooperative grocery stores, right, where consumers come together and they create a grocery store that they can all benefit from and all put in for as well, right? They all make the investment together, they all benefit together, right? And so that is really the crux of cooperative economics. And so how do you get something like that started, right? Or how do you find a means of production? It's really, if you're, and a lot of us, black women are the number one small business startup operators, also the very least funded, uh, uh, we even though we are the most educated, um, and the most willing segment of American society to start small businesses and startups, right? And profitable and productive ones as well. And that was absolutely a tangent. Uh, um, but so let's take that example, right? So you have a group of people who are small business owners, right? And let's say that um, they're all online businesses, right? They're all online businesses, and they're small businesses, and so they're having to deal with customer service. They're dealing with shipping and things like that, right? And so they come together because individually they have to pay X amount of dollars to ship out one item each time, right? Well, cooperation says that, hey, we're all online businesses here, and we're paying top dollar to ship our goods, when if we were to come together, we could get the corporate discount, or the a better discount if we come together and make these purchases together, for our to ship our sales, right? We can get a better deal together. And that's how you get purchasing co-ops, where people and small businesses come together to purchase a certain item so that they can get a discount where they wouldn't be able to get a discount by themselves, right? So they get to all share in lower costs for their small businesses, while increasing profits, because now they've taken off an amount that they have to pay, right? So now you can put that in the you've gone into the black on that, right? Take that out the red, or what has to go out, and now you can put those monies back in the black for your small business. That's just a very simple example of a purchasing cooperative. Consumer cooperatives are like uh, the the grocery stores I was talking about, or say, here's a good one for a consumer cooperative. Back in the day, post enslavement, right? They weren't building schoolhouses for black children. They weren't building hospitals for black areas, right? Though, where I live right now in North Carolina, there's a great story. Well, I don't know how great it is, but there's a very important story about the Great Fire that destroyed the black area, destroyed the black businesses, destroyed the black economy in this area, just by happenstance. They don't really know who did it or why. It's just a fate, I guess. Uh, but one of the things that came out of that fire, and this is what they'll say. I have my own thoughts about how they use it, but what they'll say is, well, it allowed us to come together and build our own hospital, right? Because they experienced this great fire, they could not go to the White Hospital. So these people were in the cemetery around here trying to get aid from each other, their local herbalists, their local emergency care within the community, right? They're in the graveyard administering care because they can't get to they won't let them into the White Hospital, even though they're experiencing a great fire that is just, destroying their entire society, right? And so they out of that fire, and I'm sorry for all these tangents, y'all. I can go on a tangent all day. But out of this fire, they came together and built a hospital, right? And so cooperative healthcare is kind of born out of that initiative, right? Like, hey, we have this need, we need to fill this need. And so consumer cooperatives are where people who have a need, they come together and they say, hey, we'll purchase this need together, or we'll do what we have to do together to provide for ourselves, to provide this need that we have for ourselves, i.e. a hospital after a fire, because you are not allowed to go to the hospital that's in the town, right? And so if you have a group of people who need food, right, and you don't have a grocery store, you're in a food desert, your community could come together and create a grocery store, or at the very least a CSA, right? So that you all can get the foods and the goods that you need collectively, because there is that gap, because you don't have that in your neighborhood, and you're going to take that self-responsibility to be able to provide for yourselves like our ancestors have done time after time, right? And so cooperative economics is a great way, and a great way just as a base level for us and all marginalized groups, right? Because I sit at a lot of intersections. And I know that cooperation is historically how a lot of marginalized groups have been able to come together and lift themselves up out of poverty, or at the very least unsavory situations, right? And so cooperative economics, self-responsibility, collective investment, and collective use of those returns, right? That is community. That is a sure alternative to our capitalist structure in place now. That's clearly we're like in end stage capitalism, right? So cooperative economics is a great alternative to that system. I'm trying to sit here and think of some other examples or some other types that I can go off of. And cooperation is actually really as old as life on Earth, right? You can take it all the way back to the Bronze Age, and I mean like the real Bronze Age, the African Bronze Age, and you can look at the varying countries of that time. They literally just decided, and it's actually a great podcast episode, I think on the ancients. I think it's on the ancients, and I ain't really trying to plug nobody or nothing like that, but they do have a good podcast episode on the Bronze Age and what took place there. And even though it is a bit whitewashed, there's still a lot of good information there. And so you're talking about places like what they would refer to as Egypt, what we would know as Kemet, right? And how they and other countries during that time decided basically, hey, we've been warring too long and this ain't looking good for our economies. We might as well as try to get along and work together so that we don't fail ourselves by trying to fail each other, right? So it was an alternative viewpoint to warring with each other and trying to conquer each other, to, hey, let's just work together and make sure that we can all continue in our reigns instead of fighting each other and all of us falling victim to uprisings or things of that nature, right? And it was one of the smartest things they could do, because then from that moment on, for the next 1,000 years, it was a time of peace known during the Bronze Age, while maintaining trade routes and effective trade, and also gift giving amongst the elites of those cultures to keep everybody in good stead, right? And so that is another great example of cooperation, because Egypt had a lot of gold, Kemet had a lot of gold, right? And other countries would say, hey, we've got what we need over here, but if you could send us a little bit of that gold, right? And then Kemet would, round up some gold and send it to them. And then you can see they have other letters documenting where people were like, we know we asked you for gold, but we actually just wanted raw gold. We didn't want already formed gold. So could you give us some of the raw gold that you have, please? Because we want to make our goods ourselves with the gold, right? And Egypt would comply with that, right? Which is something that we're not readily taught of the favorability of Kemet, right? We're always taught of the great warriors and conquerors, but this 1,000-year period of peace is based on the idea of cooperation and cooperative economics, right? You can fast forward to one of the oldest civilizations. Well, let me not say that, because that could be contested. In modern history, one of the oldest communities, I'll say, started in Brazil, in the quilombos of Brazil. What was it? Dos Palmeiras, Zumbi dos Palmeiras, in the quilombos of Brazil. So basically, this was a community of formerly enslaved people who freed themselves and decided to come together collectively to start to build up their community and protect themselves, keep themselves protected and away from harm and away from slavery, right? And so these people will come together collectively, working together, educating their young, producing the goods that they need, creating housing, creating means of economic sources and means of that nature, all together. And this was back in like the 1600s. So this is before before the dawning of America. We had Zumbi and folks down in the quilombos of Brazil coming together and practicing cooperative economics in order to keep themselves protected, safe, and well, right? And you could fast forward even in times of enslavement, right? On American soil, enslaved people would come together and tend their own gardens and raise their own chickens or hogs, right? In order to maintain for themselves and their own community outside of simply what was the scraps that were simply given to them, right? So for us, right? And when I say us, I mean, us Black African American folks, right? Our history is filled with examples of cooperation that have protected us, uplifted us, and provided for us in ways that the current systems in place have never and most likely will never, right? And so I want to hear from you all, right? Let me know in the comments. Hit us up in the DMs. Let me know what you think about cooperative economics and what some of the benefits and detractions of cooperative economics are. I'd love to hear from you. I want to get into some of the detractions of cooperative economics, because I know that a lot of people, when you talk about cooperative economics, because I'm not the first person to talk about this, we've been talking about cooperative economics for a very long time, but it's not something that Black people specifically have taken up amongst ourselves to produce the changes that we say we seek, right? And so one of the reasons that when I talk to people about cooperative economics, a lot of the feedback that I get is based on whether or not Black people have basically saying that Black people don't have the initiative or the will to come together to produce the change that we all say we seek, right? You get the stereotypes Black people don't like to work together. You can't trust. We don't trust each other. Um, all that stuff, right? And then you get the other side of, well, the we're owed something side, right? It's either we won't come together, we just can't do it, or we're owed too much, and that's why we sit on our hands doing next to nothing to bring up our collective well-being. Um, and I just don't agree with any of that, right? And that's not to say that the reasons those reasons aren't valid. I'm not saying that they're not valid, right? We are owed, absolutely, and we were wronged, absolutely, and we have been taught, um, for generations now, not to work together. Basically, ever since the KKK and Jim Crow came and burned down our cities, and at the final nail of the coffin was the interstate system that ran through all of our cities and towns and our lives, essentially disrupting us once again on American soil, right? When these things happen, then the de-education happened to prevent us from coming back together collectively ever again. The jealousy of our ability to thrive so quickly after our enslavement really just threw these folk for a loop, and they had to come and destroy all of it, right? And then they had to say, we ain't never gonna let that happen again, because they ain't gonna show us up on our land, and we gonna have to start teaching them that they can't work together, right? And so now here we are, fast forward. Now one of the reasons why we say we can't work together is because we was taught not to work together. But I know that we live in we're living in the in year 2024, right? And that I know that we're all taking up healing practices and thinking about trying to process our traumas and all of that jazz, right? And all I'm trying to say is, if we're gonna keep using that reason, right, that we've been taught this, we were wronged, we were owed this. If these are gonna be the reasons why we don't progress, then I think we need to take a step back and say we're choosing not to progress because we feel other people should give us something. And we are very much so do that. I'm not saying we're not. We are do that. But we can't expect people who ain't never wanted to give us nothing to give us something. And because they won't, doesn't mean that we should then sit on our hands and say we not gonna do nothing for us neither. That's not the way we should move. That's not good for us. That ain't been good for our past. That ain't good for our present, and it's not gonna be good for our future. Have y'all read the what's her name? Wilkerson. Is it Elizabeth or Isabella? I think it's Isabella. Isabella Wilkerson, the Cast. Have y'all read Cast? If you haven't read Cast, I suggest you read it. It's a great book. In the book, they point out the year 2111, right? In the year 2111, that'll be when, like, slavery, the amount of time that black people have lived freed on American soil to the amount of time black people have lived enslaved on American soil, right? It'll be equal at that point, at 2111, right? So if we're talking about our collective healing, right? We still in the midst of our trauma, and it's hard to and this is another tangent, so my apologies, y'all, but it's hard to heal in the midst of trauma, right? But we know, since we've all been on these healing journeys, that there are ways to do it. And all I'm saying is, let's take what we've learned on the individual level, and let's apply it on a collective level, and let's collectively heal and say, hey, just because they did this to us doesn't mean that we now have to sit here and do nothing for ourselves, right? I think Kamala Harris, one of the things that they like to joke on her about is this saying that she has about moving forward. And I ain't Kamala, I ain't gonna say it right. moving forward fully unencumbered by what's happened in the past, right? And they love to joke her down about that. But if you really hear what that quote is saying, it's basically saying, yeah, we acknowledge that all this stuff has happened and that it's wrong and unforgivable. If we're gonna be honest about it, it's wrong and it's unforgivable, and I ain't gonna be able to look at you the same ever again, right? We can admit that, and and we can move forward uh, uh, unencumbered by what has taken place, right? We can still move forward and not carry what they have put on us. We can carry what we put on ourselves. And if we put on ourselves that we aren't able to come together, that we're just so far gone that we're too beat to do anything about anything, I don't know the stock you come from, but I respectfully ask that you speak for yourself. Because the stock I come from, ain't nothing we can't do. The stock I come from built cities and towns within 10 years post enslavement and kept them thriving for decades until Jim Crow and KKK came through, the US government came through and decided to plunder our places, right? The only mistake and it's not even a mistake, I don't even want to call it a mistake, because if you really look at it, at that time in America, when had black people ever had a sense of safety on this land? You know? And so to build in the face of being unsafe, to build and thrive in the face of not having immediate resources available to you, but then coming together collectively with the resources that you have and building up something that sustained you, your children, your elders, your whole community. Well, so much so that other folks got jealous and had to come and do what they do, right? It's not a mistake to say that they weren't able to keep it, right? The mistake only happened when generations after did not rebuild. Because after those generations, we all got taught that we can't come together. We can't do nothing for each other. We're too far gone. We ain't even been on this land long as much as the time as we were enslaved on this land, but we ain't no hope for us. I can't believe that. I can't believe that. And you shouldn't either. You shouldn't either. So I'm coming up on my time. I never want to make these things too long. But before I get out of here, I do want to reposition to our wellness topic of today, right? And so again, but before I do that, again, let me know in the comments what you think of this episode. Let me know in the comments what you think about cooperative economics, what you think about, Kamala. Tell me what you think about Kamala running for office. Tell me what you think about Donnie's assassination attempt, right? Tell me what you think about what future you see in this country for us. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think. I want to start this dialogue. We want to have this space open and available for discussion to alternatives. So if you have another alternative to cooperation, I want to hear it. If you have something, or to any other type of system, whether it be economic, healthcare, education, infrastructure systems, right? Environmental systems, energy systems. Let me know what you got. I want to hear it, because I'm certainly about to let y'all know what I got. So let me know what you got. And I can't wait to hear from you. I can't wait to hear from you. And so now we're gonna pivot to our wellness zone, bringing it back to the herbal apothecary. And one of the things that we specialize in are lifestyle diseases. And so I want to take some time to talk about diabetes, because we all know that diabetes is it's a very, unfortunately, it wreaks havoc in our community, right? I lost my father a little over a year ago to diabetes, And he was a healthy guy, ex-military, doing his best, and had, he certainly had his ailments. But diabetes it's a lifestyle disease, right? And so a lot of people don't know that cholesterol, right? Cholesterol and excess cholesterol, and what excess cholesterol does to the body, the stickiness of it and how it coats your cells and your organs and things of that nature. Excess cholesterol can lead to lifestyle diseases like diabetes and heart disease, right? When you have excess cholesterol in your body, it just starts to block um, your arteries, everything. It just starts to mess you up, and it starts to produce those lifestyle diseases, right? And so when we specifically talk about diabetes, um, when cholesterol, the way it affects diabetes is that it will coat your insulin receptors, right? Because most people, and especially most people, us, right, black folks, it's not that we don't produce the insulin, it's that our bodies no longer can convert or use it, right? And that's because our receptors are most likely blocked by excessive cholesterol, preventing us from being able to absorb the insulin that we need to regulate our sugar. Right? I'm gonna try to keep it as basic and not get too technical. And so when we have diets that include excess um, cholesterol, and then we couple those diets with low activity rates, right? We're not moving our bodies, we're not exercising uh, enough, right? We're basically, I mean, unfortunately, that's the mathematics to getting diabetes, right? That is the mathematics to getting other lifestyle diseases like heart disease, right? That's the mathematics, right? You up that cholesterol, you don't have exercise or movement, equals diabetes, right? And so how do you get excess cholesterol? Well, a lot of people don't know that your body already produces all of the cholesterol you need. It already produces it. You don't actually have to seek cholesterol outside of yourself at all. You have enough to produce what you need, right? And of course, I'm generalizing that. Of course, there are, the rare circumstances where people have cholesterol deficiencies. But when the last time you ever heard of somebody having a cholesterol deficiency? Exactly. So your body produces all the cholesterol it needs. So anytime you ingest excess cholesterol or any cholesterol, it's in excess. It is in excess because your body already produces all of the cholesterol you need. And so why do we base all of our diets on high cholesterol diets? Because we're told that if we just eat more fiber, right? That's what they'll typically say. You go in, you got high cholesterol. Oh, you need to eat more fiber, right? But we live in a society that has a system in place where our diets typically are high cholesterol and low fiber at the same time. And so when you go in and they say, oh, you got low cholesterol, you should eat more fiber. And then you go into the grocery store and everything is fiberless. You're not really telling the whole story, right? And so another way to actually lower your cholesterol is to not eat foods that have cholesterol, simply because your body already produces enough. Or if you must eat foods that have added cholesterol in them, and anything that has cholesterol is added because your body already produces what it needs. And I'm going to keep running that point home. Because your body already produces all of the cholesterol it is going to need, right? So I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep saying it because we dying out here, okay? We dying from diabetes. I'm gonna have this on repeat. Your body already produces all of the cholesterol that it needs. And so when you eat those foods that are high in cholesterol all by themselves, you're really just intaking an excess of cholesterol, producing these lifestyle diseases. And so on the other side of that, right? Say you're gonna lower your cholesterol and not eat as much high cholesterol foods. On the reverse side, yeah, you could also eat higher fiber foods, which is not readily available in our supermarkets, but we can, do so, right? There are apples, right, have a good source of fiber in them. Sweet potatoes have a good source of fiber. Chickpeas have a good source of fiber in them, right? Hemp seeds and flax seeds and things like that, right? I know y'all. I'm probably losing y'all because I ain't saying ribs and whatever else. But again, we the ones dying of these diseases at the highest rate. And so we can keep the wool over our eyes, or we can be open to hearing some facts. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm just trying to save some lives right now, right? Decrease the amount of cholesterol that you are intaking, increase the amount of fiber that you are intaking, and try to make sure that your fiber sources aren't also cholesterol sources, right? So what are some good sources of fiber? I love to follow diets around the global south, right? Because the American diet is really a diet of decay, right? And so in diets around the global south, you can see grains like millet, fonio, sorghum, right? These are very healthy, very nutritious grains that are protein rich, fiber rich, no cholesterol, good sources of good fats, right? Good sources of minerals and nutrients that we need in our body, right? Excellent sources. And so I try to, when I'm eating my grains, I try to lean more towards those grains. Now I certainly do some brown rice as well, but when you're comparing, I mean, if you go towards the traditional diets, and these are traditionally African grains, fonio, sorghum, millet. These all come right off the continent, right? These are the grains that our ancestors was eating. You know what I mean? And they have sustained us for centuries, right? And so all I suggest is really, and I know it's hard, right? I know it's difficult for people to kind of like wrap their brain around having to like change their diets and create a healthy lifestyle that includes healthy foods. But it doesn't have to be their healthy foods. It can be ours, right? Our healthy foods that are full of flavor. I mean, we all know our favorite vegan folks that we go to, and we all know our favorite healthy eating folks that we go to, right? And so we can have. I'm not saying don't eat meat. If you like meat and that's what you eat your meat. All I'm saying is to add your fiber sources. You need to add a lot of fiber sources to it, and you need to uptake your veggies and your fruits, right? You need to eat more vegetables, fruits, and healthy grains than you eat your meat. So don't stop. If you don't want to stop eating your meat, don't stop eating your meat. If you want to eat the same amount of meat that you eat, keep eating the same amount of meat that you eat. All I'm trying to say is that these lifestyle diseases, specifically what we're talking about today with diabetes, is if you're gonna eat your meat, please eat the fiber, eat the fruits and vegetables, eat those in excess, and give your body a fighting chance against the excess cholesterol that you're taking in to keep yourself healthy. Because somebody gotta love you, right? Your grandmama was somebody love you, and somebody wants you to be here for the long haul. And I know a lot of that stuff tastes good, but if it's putting you in your casket early, we gotta take self-responsibility. We need to make better decisions for ourselves and our health so that we can be there for our next generation, and just to be able to live our lives to the fullest, right? Why should our lives be cut short more than anybody else's? You know? Why? Over lifestyle diseases that if we made different lifestyle choices, we wouldn't have to suffer from. You know what I mean? And so let's collectively try to or individually, however you want to do it, let's try to see if we can better our situation collectively by understanding that we're not getting all of the information when it comes to our diet. Cholesterol is at the root of these lifestyle diseases, and our diets are overly filled with excessive cholesterol because our bodies already produce all of the cholesterol that we need. And so if we are going to eat high cholesterol diets, we can't be eating all that cholesterol with white rice and white pastas and starchy vegetables and no fruits, right? We can, but we're gonna get what we've been getting, you know. But if we are gonna have those diets and where we just gotta have all that excess of meat, then please put it with excessive fruits and excessive vegetables and excessive fiber-rich grains that can help prevent some of these lifestyle diseases, or at least deter them for a while. Folks is getting diabetes in their 20s. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't want that for my folk. I don't want that for my folk. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for anybody, really. And so here at the Herbal Apothecary, we know that that's what the cause is. And so some of the things that we do with some of the people that we assist, right? Is we love corn silk, right? So on tops of corn, when corn is growing, and this is obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious, but let me make it obvious. Organically grown corn, right? Aside from pesticides and the residues and all of that make it unhealthy, right? Organically grown corn has corn silks at the top. So if you see a stalk at the very top, you see these like hairs, right? And they're just kind of like, they can be fluoridated. Sometimes they just droop depending on the sun and all that. But the corn silk at the top of corn plants is usually just disregarded, right? It's usually just like cast out trash. But the medicinal benefits of corn silk, specifically for diabetes, cannot be understated, right? Corn silk has the ability to go in and basically clear out, right? Clear out all of that excess cholesterol and open back up those pathways so that your insulin receptors can then see, hey, I am producing this insulin. Let me bring it in and keep our levels down, right? It allows your body to adapt and reverse from the symptoms of diabetes. And so if you group something like corn silk with some other popular herbs like burdock root or dandelion, right? People can't get enough of burdock and dandelion, and it's great because those are also very they're very flushing herbs, right? They help get excess unneeded things out of your body, right? They help flush. So if you combine burdock and dandelion with corn silk, a lot of folks from where I'm from would say you cooking with grease now. You know what I'm saying? Hot grease at that. And, you could really start to see beneficial effects just from a simple remedy like that. And what you would do, get you some corn silk, get you some burdock, get you some dandelion, and you can make you a tea. Now you can make you a decoction if you want to get buy it, and you can buy it. You can already buy it dried. You can grind it down, put it in some pills, poppy pills if that's what you're used to doing, right? But you can also drink teas throughout the day, right? If you're drinking the teas throughout the day, and I would say probably like at least 5 times a day. If you're living with diabetes and you want to see if you can reverse that diabetes, you need to be drinking these teas at least 5 times a day with the other lifestyle changes, of the dietary changes, and increasing your movement, right? So I'm not saying you got to full blown do HIIT exercises, because HIIT ain't for everybody, right? But if you start to move your body more than you did yesterday, then you're going in the right direction. Okay? So for our wellness segment, just to kind of wrap that up, is for diabetes and for diabetes care, right? You have to be mindful of the amount of cholesterol that you're taking in. Be mindful of the amount of fiber that you're taking in to offset the excess cholesterol. Because why? Because your body already produces all the cholesterol you're ever gonna need. Okay? It already does it. So if you're gonna have a high cholesterol diet, then give yourself a fighting chance and eat a lot more fiber, eat a lot more vegetables and a lot more fruits on your plate than just that meat source. All right, and also, you need to move your body. And then for as an herbal remedy, we suggest corn silk specifically. And if you wanted to combine it with burdock root and dandelion root as well, now you're cooking with some hot grease. And you would want to drink those teas at least 5 times a day, up until you can start to see reversals happen, right? So when you go and you get your test, you do your pricks, you do you do what you need to do, right? And you start to see it start to decline. I know it'll be a great feeling for you, and I hope you are steadfast and get there. All right. So, hey, I'm Nat. This has been the Herbal Apothecary Podcast. You can find us on our YouTube channel at The Herbal Apothecary, on Instagram, The Herbal Apothecary _. You go to our website, www.theherbalapothecary.net, and check us out. We have dietary plans, we have workout plans, and we do consultations if you want some one-on-one personalized safe and effective care. And so wrapping up, thanks for joining me today. It's certainly been my pleasure. I hope that you have learned something about cooperative economics, and cooperative economics being an alternative system that we could collectively put in place to uplift ourselves together, right? And so let me know what you think. Hit us up in the comments below. Hit us up in the DMs. However you want to reach us, and let us know what you think. We'll be happy to hear from you. So peace out. We'll see you next time. All right.